Hi, Barry Eaton here. Welcome to Radio Out There. We look ahead at 2024 for astrology and numerology with expert Neil Hare. Neil, hi, and good to talk to you in 2024. Wow, how are things going?
Thanks, Barry. Lovely to talk to you. Always is. We always have a chat beginning of the year. No, it's going well. Uh, yeah, so it's a busy year. I've been finding a busy year. I always find the start of the year is really busy because there's all these things. There's lectures at the weekend and there's things to
Yeah,
prepare for. And beginning of the year, you always want to know
it's
what's
always,
going
yeah,
on. Yeah,
fair enough.
exactly.
Now,
Yeah.
you sent me some wonderful backup notes and whatever, and
Mhm.
I'm going to quote to start off with here. First of all, we,
Sure.
we do it in numerology and also
Yep.
astrology, but you say the archetypes numerologically for this year are sensitivity, accompanied by relationship building in a year of power and authority. Now, that is a very interesting sentence. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. This whole century, all our years uh, begin 20. So right until we get to 2100, it'll always be 20. And that's what I started noticing a wee while ago that even though the total of the whole thing, 2024 is 8, which overall they call it a universal year 8, and that is the year of power and authority. The sensitivity seems to come through hugely through the 20. And I was surveying with a class a wee while ago about whether we felt this sensitivity that had come in, that everybody's got so sensitive about everything. Has
Mm,
this really started since the year 2000?
yeah.
And we came to the consensus it was that young kids born in the 2020s
Mm,
rather than the 1900s seem to be there's much more sensitivity around. So I'm looking at the years each time as the 20 having a major significance as the two first digits, and then the second two digits being 2 and 4. 2 and 4 together giving us 6. That's a number pattern to do with building relationships
mm.
and relating and harmony, balance, things like that. The 2, 4, 6. So somehow there is a combination of sensitivity and relationship building, but yet it's a year of power and authority. And I guess if you apply that to the world and what's going on in the world, because a lot of conflicts in the world, you would hope that the leaders, the people in the positions of power, can actually become listeners and more aware of what's going on and not just doing things without listening to what's around them. Because I think that's often what happens. There's not enough listening takes place. And
Mm.
the 2 is a number very much of listening and developing awareness. And so maybe there's a way of building relationships this year. Some of it might happen behind the scenes. And I know when we looked at it last year, 2023, the 23 is more about communication. And there was quite a lot of background communication. I think always governments tend to have that, so they don't get into major conflict.
Yeah.
They actually have people behind the scenes talking. And I felt that was sort of sensitive communication behind the scenes. But this is at a more upfront with the 8. And it was a powerful year the last time, 9 years ago. It was around the time of the crisis around Syria and in 2015. And I think it was around the
Mm.
time that Barack Obama was drawing his red lines, but then didn't follow through. And then it ends up Russia's moved into Syria
Mm.
and bases there now. And so it needs strength as well. There's all very well been sensitivity, but still need to be the 8. You need to be strong
Mm.
as well. So it's an interesting year. And there is another chart you can do just drawn for the first of the first, 2024, which I would call an ingress chart, numerological ingress chart. We're familiar with these in astrology, where they draw a chart for when the sun moves into Aries around the 21st of March or thereabouts. And that's looked on as a chart that tells you about the year ahead.
Mm.
Well, I think the ingress chart for the first of the first, 2024, will also tell you things too. I mean, you construct that chart, one of the major patterns that comes out is the pattern of 2s and 9s, which you would have seen. And that's got a lot of emotional empathy and supportive energy. And it actually could be quite relevant for the American election, as it turns out. We
Yeah,
might
we're
get
going to talk about that a
later.
bit later.
That's right,
Yeah.
later on. Yeah,
That's on everybody's lips, isn't it?
that's right. Yeah.
Mm.
So
But
there's lots. It's a big year, a big year.
it is.
Yeah.
Now, I look on it. through the eyes of Pluto changing signs
Mm,
and
mm,
returning to the sign of Aquarius for the first time in 245 years,
yeah,
and how that moved. And as we know, numbers and planets all move in cycles, and we have to
yeah.
learn from the past and the mistakes that we've made, but we don't, do we? That's the problem. But
That's right. We tend not to do that. Yeah,
uh, but Pluto, being a
yeah.
planet we associate with
Mm,
transformation,
mm,
I see this as a real transformative year because Pluto is going to go in and out a bit before it settles in Aquarius
mm.
in 2025. So I don't know. I think uh, overall, I'm feeling that we can't really settle down into something this year. It's very transformational. What do you think?
I think I would agree with that, Barry. I mean, last year in 2023, Pluto went into Aquarius briefly for about a couple of months.
Mm,
That actually triggered some of the financial crisis around some of the banks, the banks in America, there were banks elsewhere. And it looked like as when Pluto went into Capricorn 2008, that was around the time of the real financial crisis. So it
that's for
looked
sure.
to me like, oh no, we're getting a rerun of this as
Yeah.
it leaves Capricorn. But then it came back in again, and there's not been anything major since it went in on the 21st of January into Aquarius again. Uh, I think I noted actually it was quite interesting in the watching the tennis recently in Australia, the Australian Open, that we had an overthrow of quite a few champions and quite a
Mm,
few high-seeded players left the tennis scene. And of course, Novak Djokovic, he actually won in 2008, just after Pluto went into Capricorn. That was his first win, and then he got overthrown this year as
yeah.
Pluto left Capricorn, which I thought was sort of interesting. Yeah, but the
Yeah.
young guy, the young sinner, yeah,
By the
interesting.
young sinner, Italian player. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that to me is an indication of what we may expect with
Mm,
Pluto going into Aquarius. Reflecting 245 years ago, it was the
that's
time of the
right.
French Revolution, the
Mm,
Industrial Revolution, scientific
yep.
developments. And I think working on history, we can look forward to this
Mm,
as we go
mm.
through the next 20 odd years.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's a time of transformation,
Mm.
definitely.
But we've also seen lots of riots and upheavals and street
Mm.
protests and whatever, haven't we? So is this the forerunner, do you think, of a lot more as we go through into settling into Aquarius?
Well, I think there's a combination of things. Again, referring back to 2023, in the March, 23rd of March, it went into Aquarius for a couple of months, it's 2.5 months. There were riots in Paris. There
Mm.
were riots in Israel about the legislation Netanyahu was trying to push through to limit the Supreme Court. So there was resistance to things. So that's going to be there when I think when governments try to impose too much power. And of course, you'll know that in 2025, of course, you'll know that we get the Saturn Neptune conjunction surrounded by Uranus, which believes in freedom, and Pluto and Aquarius believes in freedom. So you've got a bit of an interesting situation building. And because the Saturn Neptune conjunction has tended to be involved a lot with heavy socialism.
Mm.
And back in the 20th century, it was like 1917, the cycle of the planets 1917, 1953, 1989. The conjunctions were all to do with communism. And
Mm.
the next one coming up, and there you get Russia and China, though Russia's not really officially, it's not communist now, but it's authoritarian. China still is. And they think they're the bee's knees at the moment, and they're
Yeah.
going to take over everything. And so there's an interesting thing building. And authoritarian governments, there was a very interesting article about Greg Sheridan last Saturday talking about this. That Iran, Russia, China, they're all lining up together and as the authoritarians, and they think they're all going to take over. But then Uranus and Pluto are going to slip into place as well.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like that, but it's a very interesting story that's building at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, associating, just to let people know, associating Pluto with transformation. Uranus, we look at sudden change, it's
Mm,
known as the Great Awakener, and your Saturn then is the authority,
mm,
the governments and everything like that. So when all these come into challenge, boy,
yeah.
we are in interesting times.
Yeah. Just maybe to frame that so to help listeners as well with Saturn and Neptune. Saturn is an authority figure astrologically, believes in boundaries. like the parties that tend to relate to that are more right wing. They're more
Mm.
Saturnian. They believe in boundaries and borders and things like that. It's a major issue in America at the moment. And Neptune tends to relate more to left wing parties, and it's all about compassion. But Neptune does not believe in boundaries, and therefore that you have borders are open and everything like that. So
Yeah.
it's contest all the time, especially in socialism in a way. There's the balancing of Saturn, the need for firm economic management and boundaries and borders and and limits to budgets. And then Neptune says, "Oh, forget all that. Let's just, nobody's responsible for anything. It's not nothing to do with me,
I
and we'll
know.
just keep the borders open." So there's all this contest all the time. And Saturn's the authority that squashes down and everything. So
Mm, mm.
even though in communism it was this idea that everybody's equal around the world and everything, but then of course you need a policeman that says, "I'll make sure everything's equal and I'll press down on you," and that's where it comes. That's where it gets authoritarian. So it's very interesting dynamics.
Mm, mm.
Mm.
Yeah, well, we shall see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's
Now,
right.
one of the big things that's going to happen this year is we have two solar eclipses, but the first
Mm.
one in April, April 8
Yes.
in the northern hemisphere and 9 in southern, that is going to have a very, very big impact. There's a
Mm.
huge concentration of planets around, well, Aries for the solar eclipse, the
That's right.
Aries associated with the god of war, of course,
Mm.
and so on. Tell us a bit about that, how you see
Yeah,
the
and
solar eclipse.
Chiron's sitting in there as well, in between
Yes.
on the moon. It's exactly on, and it's also in America's birth chart. It's also a Chiron return,
Mm.
so that's really significant
Well, it is
and
because Chiron we
very
associate
significant.
as the planet of the wounded healer.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, there must be a potential. I mean, certainly the Aries is a very feisty energy, and is how to heal situations around war. I've been looking at that with students at that particular eclipse because it's such a powerful setup of about six planets all in
Mm.
the same area, and it really provides an enormous boost into the chart, whatever chart it's falling into. In the American government chart, it's in the fourth house, which is the foot of the chart, which is the home and family and security. So there's a lot of that driving, fiery energy. So coming around April, I mean, I know the primaries are starting up or building up. I was looking last night to see if there's a primary right on there. And there's apparently primaries, I think, the 2nd of April, but not really on the 9th or 8th of April. So it may not come out in any particular event, but and also that eclipse travels right up in inland America as well. It's quite
Mm.
very significant there too.
Mm.
Yeah, look, we hopefully that leaders around the world can use this to have a new beginning, and because Aries is about a new beginning, and grab hold of that and see if they can heal warlike situations and use it for good because it's a
Yes,
very
but will
powerful
they?
energy.
Will they?
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
problem.
that's I guess that's the problem, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm. That
I
they're
mean, the
more
good.
interested in using it for their own political agenda.
That's right. I mean,
Mm.
it's quite a fiery combination in USA because it's in the fourth house, the home. Uh,
And isn't it also domestic politics? Will that fall in that fourth
yes,
house?
yes, I guess
So,
it would be
of course,
too.
we have the election.
And that's right. It's also the opposition too.
Mm.
Opposition part of government's the 10th house and opposition the fourth house. So, yeah, it's going to be fiery. So whether we'll be a fiery debates. I mean, Donald Trump's not really been in a debate yet. He keeps staying away from them because he's winning anyway.
Yeah, but
And
also they keep tying him up in court, so he can't go.
oh, that's right. Because the judgment just yesterday, I think, wasn't it? They ruled against him having special immunity as
Mm.
president because they said he wasn't the president, he was a citizen with no special protections. So that'll be off the Supreme Court again, no doubt.
Yeah,
So
well, we'll talk more about
there.
the election a bit later on, but
Yeah.
with the solar eclipse, maybe we
Mm.
should explain to people very, very, very briefly why or what the power is around a solar eclipse as it
What
affects us and also countries.
Yeah, well, the solar eclipse it's a very powerful new moon. The solar eclipse it's when the sun and the moon align. people will know that if you look at the sky, we get new moons every month, basically, every
mm,
sort of 28, 29 days, whatever. But it's only when everything's lined up, the moon is actually on the same plane as the Earth goes around the sun. They call that the ecliptic plane. It's going around the sun. And when the moon goes above and below the Earth, when they actually get to the point that the moon is actually on the lined up with what they call this nodal axis. It's this moving point as it cycles around I suppose round the sun Earth path, and the North Node, South Node, and you end up getting when that's that. It means when the moon hits at that point, then it's going to be lined up totally. Everything's in the same alignment. So therefore, the moon sits in front of the sun, and therefore then we it blocks the rays of the sun. And that's also, well, it's still a new moon. It is a new moon, but also blocks it. And we get that every twice a year. So you only get an eclipse twice a year. I think there's a significance as well in terms of whether it's at the North Node or South Node. And I think this one's at the North Node from
mm,
memory.
mm,
And
it is.
I think the North Node, because North Node is meant to be where we're heading in our lives, the North Node of the moon, as it's called. So I think this actually says, I feel the North Node one is you're heading in the right direction here, just keep doing what you're doing.
Mm,
But bearing in mind, it's a very feisty energy. So
mm,
hopefully people use it or leaders use it the right way. I mean,
yeah.
individuals in their life, if they had their own chart and knew where that fell in the chart, then you can actually start off new projects in that area of your life because you'll get a real boost of energy as
Mm.
the new moon is a time of planting seeds and that come to fruition at the full moon.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Because with
yeah.
the solar eclipse this time, there's always a shadow, a path that it follows
Mm. Yes,
across the Earth. And this one
yes,
is going right across the USA
that's
and
wrong.
very much across the eastern part, like New York,
Mm.
Washington, whatever.
Yeah.
And of course, being the year of an election, wherever
Mm.
the shadow
Mm.
is, it can create all sorts of things, including, as you so rightly said a moment ago, new beginnings.
Yeah.
What kind
Yeah.
of effect will the solar eclipse have because of its location on the election, I wonder?
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, it's like a whole new path is going through
Mm,
at the eastern seaboard. It's not right on the coast, it's a little bit inland. So I was looking quickly, but I didn't really know birthplaces so readily in my mind about where everybody was born, like where Joe Biden was born and other people were born, to see if it passed through any of these places. But it's certainly heading up through and then into Canada and across out over the ocean. But yeah, actually almost closer to, I think, Ottawa, and I think it goes fairly close to that.
mm,
And yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, you look back in history in the past to see, I mean, you don't want to be making predictions that all this stuff will happen.
no.
But obviously there's a major focus of energy around that area of the chart. Um,
Mm,
I felt there might be with in America's chart, they have Chiron, the wounded healer, in the sign Aries, and it's going to be a conjunction with that. And I wondered whether, in fact, that might have some way of actually bringing to light the need to do something about violence and, maybe gun culture violence. And maybe something around that, something positive like that can happen with that, that
mm,
some action is taken to try to heal that wound. Because any commentator you listen to, it's quite an unusual American problem that with the gun violence that takes place, and so maybe there's a way of galvanizing that energy to do something with it. I guess we'll have to see what politicians, if they pick up anything on that. I know they're discussing border things and aid to Ukraine and Israel at the moment. That's the major thing that's going on at the moment. But then we're still a couple of months away from the eclipse. So.
yeah. It will be interesting to see just
Yeah,
how it does play out in the
sure.
months because it's when we talk about a new beginning, it's what the start of
Mhm.
a 9 month cycle of
Yes,
growth,
true. That's true.
like a pregnancy.
Yeah, that's
Mm,
true. That's
mm,
true. And we'll come through. Something else on the president thing. While we got Pluto in Aquarius at the moment, it's interesting that it will slip back into Capricorn before during the time of the election. I thought it was very
that's
interesting.
right. Yes.
Yeah, very
And
interesting. Yeah,
we'll hold that election thought
yeah,
soon. Right
yeah.
into that one. Um, Also, this year, we have Jupiter and Uranus getting
Mm,
together in a conjunction. That's
mm,
April, May, just after the solar eclipse.
Yes, yes,
Also in Taurus, which can be
yes.
money or all sorts of areas like that. But I
Mm,
wonder what
mm.
that effect may well be on, say, the economy.
Mm. Well, I think that's very positive, actually. I think it could be a time of brilliant ideas. I mean, Uranus Jupiter conjunction would be quite inspirational. And so, you again, you hope that would be able to be galvanized in some way. I think in America's chart, that's probably going to come up in this fifth house of creativity, I think. Yeah, because it depends individually what your chart, how it's set up as to where that particular conjunction will come. But
Mm,
it's yeah, it's very, very prominent. I noticed as well, Donald Trump has stuff happening around his career house and around that time. So that might be a boost. Either it's off to do a new career, and a new career for him, I suppose, could be president again.
mm.
And but if he didn't win, it could be something else. But he's not going anywhere at the moment, I think. So
No, this whole year
yeah,
will be so fascinating
yeah.
to see how it happens. Now,
Mm.
let's talk about Australia. We've talked about a
Yeah,
lot about the
sure.
US.
That's right. Yeah.
Let's talk about what's happening here because
Mm.
we are going through all sorts of big changes, lots of government problems, and all sorts of
Mm.
things. How do you see uh, things working out in Australia?
Yeah, well, Australia, numerologically, Australia's gone into number one year, and the number one year is about leadership and being bold and taking the lead. I think it tends to end up being a bit of a problem year for Australia often because we have challenges around that as well. That we're major procrastinators, and that's a negative side of one, that we keep making decisions and then say, oh, not sure about that, better have another committee, and then they have another Royal Commissioner committee, and they ignore the findings of the previous one, called a new one that says the same thing again, and then they end up just ignoring it, just sort of gathers dust on the shelf. And
Yeah,
then another event comes up and they have another Royal Commission,
I
and
know.
somebody just needs to do something sometime.
I
And
know
so
there's
it
all
can,
this waffle going on at the
I
moment about
know,
whether
it's
we
terrible.
will have a Royal
Yeah,
Commission into what happened during COVID. Oh, well, we
yeah,
might do this, we might do that. We've got a plan
yeah,
for this, we've got a plan for that. They've
yeah.
always got plans, but nothing seems to happen.
Nothing
So
happens. Yeah,
that procrastination is
that's
very,
right.
very frustrating.
Yeah, the year 10 was a 10-1. It adds because we're the first of the first, 1901. And you take the one and the one and the 2024, and it gives 10 and gives a one. You add all
Uh-huh.
the one, one, two, two, four.
Right.
10-1, it should be a year to be bold. It's a year to be bold. Let's say we have challenges around that as well. We're born the first, which is good. So it does give that, it helps that, but our months are one and challenges are ones. And it does tend to be a bit of a difficult year astrologically because we end up not really being as bold as we need to be. Astrologically, we have a lot of what we call squares, which are quarter circle aspects, so like 90-degree aspects from the planet Neptune. And Neptune squares to quite a few major planets in the chart can be total confusion. So Neptune in square, 90-degree angle is confusing. And we have it to do with our legal system. We've got all these bun fights going on, legal bun fights, cases going on for ages.
Oh, yeah.
And then we've got communication issues. I mean, there's a lot of hacking around everywhere, but confusion in policies. And, you got governments coming up with one policy, another department comes up with another policy, and they counteract each other. So
And the
nothing
bureaucracy's gone mad.
I know, and then there's all sorts of things, and then we'll have a lot of virtue signaling this year, which is this thing of doing things or saying things that you want to happen because it makes you look good, but it doesn't actually achieve anything.
Mm.
And they tend to be done by the inner city elites, as they call them, sitting sipping their lattes in the cafes in central Sydney, and saying we should have all this renewable energy, and hey, we'll get all the regions to do this. And it won't bother us. We won't have any windmills in George Street. We'll have them everywhere else.
No, that's right.
But
Don't
we'll
worry about
feel
the
really
farmers.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll feel really good. That's right. So there's all this. I think it's going to be a really big year of that this year. We've got all these squares the whole of the year. And the number one year should be good. But on the other hand, with this other stuff, there'll be a lot of diversions, I think, this year. Whereas 2025 is going to be absolutely brilliant. We'll get through it. I think the thing we're going to do this year is do nothing majorly wrong, like
Mm.
no major commitments that you can't unwind. because if you set anything in concrete, you can't unwind. You could stuff yourself up. But if we get through this year, 2025 is going to be an absolutely brilliant year.
Good. Well,
Yeah,
maybe that means we have to stop
yeah.
polluting our countryside with thousands and tens of thousands of giant towers everywhere,
I know. That's right.
all pushed out by so-called environment. How can it be an environment which is covered in bloody towers?
Yeah, I know. I read
Mm.
today that an article today was saying that they should split that ministry. They've got the climate change minister and energy minister as the same person.
Yeah,
They need a different point of view
and they
because
split it.
he's combining it all together to fit his
Yeah.
climate ideology. And therefore you get energy decisions made that just fit in with his climate thinking. And
Mm.
you need two separate people, but whether that's going to happen or not,
Yeah,
maybe
well,
not until this government ends up going at some stage. Who
well, perhaps if they split it and put him into some portfolio like public toilets, it might work out.
knows?
Okay. So, how do you see Australia this year? As you said, we're sort of
I think
marking
it's a
time.
difficult year. It's a difficult year to. I think we're going to make bold moves forward. We've got to be strong enough internationally, and it's interesting how there've been issues because there's issues around defence come up all the time, and we've got major stuff happening from Pluto in the chart as well astrologically that are saying challenges to our border security and to our migration policies
Oh,
and to threats from international more probably notional threats, but making, and then what it's doing is uncovering all the disasters in the Defense Department and all the how many myriads of helicopter have they
mhm.
had over the year. And the last disaster was that the Ukraine asked them for these ones that had a couple of accidents. But when you're fighting a battle, maybe it doesn't matter if you have a couple of accidents because at least you save lots of people.
Yeah.
So they've buried them and cut them up. You think, what are they doing?
Ridiculous. Absolutely
They cut off
ridiculous.
the head. And I think this Neptune square, I think it's like to some degree, people in positions of power, administration, I think they've lost the marbles to some degree. I remember looking at this years ago,
Yeah.
and when I gave a talk, and maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I could see this coming up. And it actually was about are we going to go insane and lose our marbles when these Neptune squares come in? And
Mm.
we're living it, we're in the midst of it.
We are.
These
Well,
crazy.
as you said before, Neptune can be confusion, delusion, and
Yeah.
all these areas. And we have a square
Mm.
conflict.
Yeah.
So, boy, are we having that right now.
Yeah, it's
But
a
we're not the
difficult
only
one.
ones.
Yeah,
We are not the only ones because there's
no,
huge
exactly.
problems with farmers in
Mm,
Europe, all over the place. Dreadful
yeah.
things that are happening there.
Mm.
So, do you see this playing out in a worldwide sort of scene?
No, I mean the Neptune squares are specifically for Australia. It won't be affecting other countries, but what is going to affect other countries is this coming together of Neptune and Saturn. So
Mm,
I think you're going to get this move towards more socialism will become really strong. I mean, it's strong
really?
anyway, but I think I'm noticing with this government here that they are seeking to control more things. And that's, of course, when you end up in a socialist government, they're a socialist government to start with, but when you end up going more extreme socialism, then you've got the Saturnian part of it comes in that wants to control everything
Control.
and tell you what you can, the only things you can do. And somebody was saying already the other day to do with, with the electric vehicles, that Australia is a much bigger country than say Sweden or Finland and so on. And is the government going to start to tell people, sorry, you can't tow a caravan across Australia now? And
Right.
people want to do things like that.
Mm,
You have to have an electric vehicle, and we know that electric vehicles at the moment would not tow a caravan. And so, and what about all the tradies? And is the government going to say, sorry, all these jobs are going to have to go because we say this is what the car that people must have, and this is what it starts to get to control. And
yeah.
it's getting more like that. It's getting going more that way. And but it won't. I mean, it's not. We don't have all the infrastructure in place to be able to do that anyway. Because, but when you think of the procrastination I was talking about, people who want to fill, who are going on a trip, they might have to, if they can find a fast charter, maybe not a fast charter, but a normal charter, they'd be sitting in a parking lot someplace for hours,
That's right.
cars in the car.
Yeah.
So going someplace might go from taking 3 hours to 6 hours, and think, well,
I
is
know.
this really speeding up the
Oh, it's
nation?
mad. But I
Yes.
notice over in
Yeah.
the US, sales have dropped with
Yes.
EVs,
That's
and
right.
Hertz, the great car rental people, they have sold off a large part of their fleet,
Mm.
and they've gone back to petrol-driven cars
Yeah.
because they say
Yeah.
people don't want them for
Yeah.
that reason. You can't tow anything, you can't go anywhere. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm all for renewables phased in, but not rushed in, and
That's
have
right.
a take it whether you like it or not. This is what we've decided. You do it, do as you're told, and that's what you're
Mm.
talking about there, and
That's
that's
right.
what's happening
Exactly. Yeah.
in so
That's what
many
the
areas.
Prime Minister is saying. You do as you're told,
Mm.
basically. Yeah.
But when Pluto goes into Aquarius full time, French
Yeah.
Revolution, remember that's on cycle,
Exactly.
the
That's
people will
right.
speak. And maybe
That's
some
right.
politicians might, figuratively speaking, lose their heads, or at
That's
least their
right.
seats anyway.
This is true. Like the French Revolution.
Very much. Now, let's get on
Yeah.
to a couple of other very quick things here if we can.
Yeah.
Uh, we talked about the US election, and
Yes.
at the moment we can't really say too much because, well, we don't know really. I don't think Biden's
Mm.
going to end up there.
Mm.
I think he's been held in position, and they'll drop somebody in
Mm.
at the last minute. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Michelle Obama.
Well,
And
I haven't checked a chart out yet, but I was hearing that as well. That's right. I
yes,
haven't, yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
talk about that one, but
Yeah.
they can't have Biden in there. He's nearly as old as I am, and he doesn't know where he is half the time. I would imagine being a president of the United States. Anyway, and Trump's too old as well. We need younger people with
Mm.
vital energy. But if we
Yeah.
are stuck with both of these lot,
Mm.
how do you see it?
Well, it's an interesting one, because you can look at the chart, you look at it astrologically, look at it numerologically. Numerologically, the chart of the 5th of November 2024, it actually is a pattern of numbers that's quite like the year chart, the twos and nines. So it's sort
Mm,
of interesting. It's nines and twos are strong. I think that's maybe when you bring Trump's chart in with when you add Trump's chart in as well. You get, there's uncertainty around the actual chart. When you add Trump's chart into it, you get nines and twos come in. And that's actually generally very empathic. And I'm thinking, well, does this fit Trump? Maybe it'll be a new Trump if he got in. Because what's interesting, Pluto has been really prominent for about a couple of years at least in America, what's called their Pluto return. And it's brought up lots and lots of stuff like from the woodwork, things to be addressed. Trump has been called not the correspondents that are looking at astrology, but I know I gave you a couple of slides at least to have a look at where commentators have actually made comments about
mm,
subterranean things. And there was one the other day saying that Trump just has this habit of digging up stuff. And I reckon Trump's been playing a cameo as Pluto in the chart. And
the
but
Lord of the
Pluto's like
Underworld.
That's right. Pluto is, I mean, one of the cases they brought against him was in, I'm not sure which state it was. It was actually treating him like the mafia. And I thought, well, that fits as well. But Pluto in the American chart has moved into a really harmonious position now with the midheaven, which is the career point, and that'll really give them a lot of power internationally.
Mm,
And it's actually so Pluto, whoever's playing Pluto, will start to play a more positive role. So it wouldn't surprise me if he did get in, and his chart's really positive. He could easily win.
mm,
It's actually lots of really good transits around the time, good planetary movements, and also his chart with the election chart astrologically is very strong.
mm,
And if he won, he may turn out to be a different Trump. It's quite possible could play it a different way.
mm.
And I find it interesting that with the way the movements are, Pluto's now in Aquarius. I think Pluto in Capricorn, which we'll go back to by the election time, Pluto in Capricorn, I think, really represents all these authoritarian power brokers.
Yeah.
That's, of course, what he loves. He loves that. And that's probably why he felt he got on with Putin and President Xi and even the North, Kim Jong-un, because they're all that authoritarian type. I think Trump quite liked that. And it's funny how it's gone back into Capricorn
At
when
the
the
time.
election will be on.
Mm, mm,
But the chart in America, if you were the president of America, you would have to play a role that's a very positive role in the world and stabilizing the world.
yeah.
Says Pluto is in harmony with the midheaven of the chart, which is them as the peacemaker. So it would be very positive in a way. And so the other thing that chart numerology comes up, the patterns of twos and nines, which is in the year chart and also in Trump's chart with election, it's a pattern that comes up a lot with hospitals. Now, I'm not suggesting for a minute it means that Trump has to go to hospital, but at the same time, they're both a bit dottery, and Trump
Mm.
less so than Biden. And you think, well, it would be funny if hospitals popped up somewhere. But I'm not predicting it will happen, but
No.
it's a pattern that's got a lot of emotional empathy. I find in people's charts when twos and nines pop up, maybe as the life path, the total of the date of birth, they often work in the medical field
Mm.
as nurse, a doctor, or they're drawn
Or
into that
whatever.
sort
Mm.
of caring occupation. So it's a caring pattern. So if Trump did win, he would have to, well, it's saying a caring president. So, I guess if he won, then it would be very interesting to see if that
Mm.
actually was a bit of a transformation.
Yeah, well, love him or hate him, the one thing you have to say is that there were no wars during his
Exactly.
presidency.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
he did care in that regard.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
it will be interesting to see how it plays out. So maybe the hospital bit could be he might do something with the medical system over there.
That's possible. Yeah, they should have been doing that the last time he was
Yeah,
in, but yeah,
yeah.
that's true. I know it was funny because we were talking to some friends in the UK maybe a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying, "Oh, what if Trump get in again? The hand on the red button." I say, "Well, hang on a sec. If you look at the facts, he actually was involved with no wars. He actually set up the Abraham's Accord. He tried to negotiate with Kim Jong-un in North
Mm.
Korea to get them onto an economic track rather than what they're doing, and to give up nuclear weapons. And he signed up. He didn't sign up Saudi Arabia. They're not signed up yet, but there was a few nations came in, and whereas under Biden, I mean, Biden didn't sign up to the withdrawal from Afghanistan. That was Trump. He made the deal, but then the withdrawal was disastrous. They left what about
Absolutely.
$50 billion worth of equipment there, which is no doubt
Unbelievable.
be used in Iran, and it's got to Iran probably. And then there's the Israeli conflict, there's the Ukrainian conflict, and I feel the diplomacy around the Ukrainian thing was absurd. They
Absolutely.
made a total stuff up. They could have resolved that. But
Mm.
anyway, but there was nothing like that under Trump. So, I mean, I'm sure from an ego point of view, he's trying to go for the Nobel Peace Prize, and fair enough. If he did something to win it, that's fine.
Well,
To deserve it, that's great.
that's
Barack
right.
Obama got it for just showing up, basically.
Yeah, basically. All right.
But
Well, look,
yeah, it'd be
time will
interesting to see what happens. Yeah,
time will tell.
yeah,
Look, we're just about out of time, but
yep, that's okay.
we haven't touched on the Middle East, and
Yes,
that is
yeah.
another real
Mm,
tough
yeah.
point, a flashpoint. It's more than that. How do you see that?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously it's in a disastrous state at the moment with
Mm,
with the 7th October attacks, and then Israel's in Gaza, sort of a lot of civilians being killed, like 26,000,
terribly,
as well as trying to chasing down Hamas. What to me, there's a real plutonic thing to this as well. And I've been looking at the charts actually with Israel's chart, with Hamas's chart and everything. There's a lot of Pluto conflict. And look at all the tunnels. Think
yeah.
of
Mm,
Pluto was the lot of the underworld
yeah,
and also used to come up from tunnels. And
that's right.
it's exactly so there's a lot of plutonic stuff there. But what I've noticed over the years, and other people have as well, there's this biblical text saying, God saying that any country or any person who supports Israel and looks after Israel is basically my friend, and any who doesn't do that, I'll be against them. And what I've noticed is that since about 1991, since I started looking at it then, there's been a lot of presence of trying to push this two-state solution to solve the thing. Every time they go out to Israel, they go to Israel to push the two-state solution. Almost simultaneously, there's massive storms occur across in America, almost like nature or God through nature is saying, "Hey, don't do this." Now, I've pondered on this for a long time. Does this mean the two-state solution is the wrong way to go? I mean, that's why not? But I think it might be that in fact the part of the two-state solution, one side of it does not want it to happen. In fact, the Palestinians, a lot of them actually just want Israel to disappear
Of course.
until maybe there's acceptance, and especially Hamas has got a charter in 1988 that basically says Israel off the face of the map.
Mm.
And
From the
why
river to the
want
sea.
somebody who's got a state and they think like that still, there's
Yeah.
not going to be peace anyway. And maybe the storms, because even in January, you had massive storms again. And Anthony Blinken, who's doing a great job, all the shuttle diplomacy, he's over there talking the two-state solution, and this massive freeze across almost the whole of America, simultaneous. And then you've had California, it's just had massive rain,
I
and he's been
know.
back over there again talking about it.
Yeah,
And
Hollywood's
so
flooded.
every time something they're talking about it, because I think what's not been resolved is the acceptance of Israel,
Mm. Mm.
and that's when it will work.
All right. Well, as we said before, time will tell.
We're not quite there yet, I don't think.
No, but I also see, because we have a lot of retrograde of Uranus in Taurus this year, I associate that also with earthquakes. And I think we've already had them. And I think the latter part of this year, from about June to onward, we're going to have I've got some notes here. When did I put it down there? About anyway, not to worry. July to the end of January 2025, we could see lots of earthquakes, and who knows what's going to happen there.
Yeah, Uranus in Taurus is not comfortable in Taurus.
No.
Yeah,
and in retrograde, whoa, watch out.
Yeah.
Neil, thank you so much.
Thank you, Barry. Always good to talk.
We'll hold our breath this year and hope that we all get through to 2025 and away we go.
That's right. Okay.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot.
Bye.